I'm very biased because one, I was punched in the face when in a court storming. A punch, and I didn't even know who did it, and we won. And that's the crazy thing. Like we won. I'm like, yeah, wow. And I'm like, what happened?
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Odd Coaches Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Keith Adams, and with me today are cavalcade of stars, starting with academic and athletic consultant for the CKA Project, George Ocker. George, how you doing today, man?
I'm fine, and I would like to say this is all Robert's fault. That moniker is all Robert's fault. So I'm gonna leave it there.
And speaking of our favorite administrator, Robert Abney is here. Robert, how are you, sir?
George, at least he's being consistent with it now.
Yeah, I know.
He's not, that's the one he's chosen. It's good.
Will save us. Captain for life, Will Cotton, is also joining us. Will, how are you, sir?
Most comfortable T-shirt in the world. Let's go.
All right. So on today's show, in segment one, we've got men's college basketball. We'll talk about the net rankings, and we'll also remind us that we can't even walk off the court safely these days. In segment two, we're going to take a deep dive into the different aspects of what's going on right now in terms of can't even shake hands. We're going to talk about the women's game. And in segment three, new rules and regulations have come about that we need to talk about. But first, men's net rankings. Houston's 1, Purdue's 2, Arizona's 3, UConn is 4, Alabama's 5, Tennessee is 6, Auburn is 7, Iowa State is 8, Creighton is 9, and UNC is 10. Extended winning streaks this week, fellas. St. Mary's is still going. University of South Florida and Colgate. Those are the only 3 teams in the country with extended winning streaks. And I got to start off with George. George, what has caught your eye this week in the men's game? Because nobody can really get on an extended winning streak.
No, and that's the one thing that catches the parity. The way they're beating each other up is the biggest thing. That if you want to talk about what caught my eye, that's it right there. I mean, Duke lost last night. We got UNC squeaked by because UVA decided to play the ugliest game I've seen in known history. Yeah, so it was, and it's been like that through the Big 12 continues to beat each other up. Robert will jump on that in a minute, and I mean, it's the days of having those dominant blue blood programs are, I don't know if they're gone, but it is really, it hasn't shown up this year. It's worse this year than it ever has been. And that's good for the game. So it's bad for the bettors because if you're gonna do any extra action on it, you don't know which way to go because you don't know who's going to show up that night. But that's the big thing, the parity in college basketball.
Cotton Man, what has caught your eye this week?
Man, UConn are beating people up. They're just whooping on people, and
Unless
it's
you're
not pretty.
Creighton.
But they are playing very well at the right time, and they're looking very dangerous. I know they're the 4th in the net ranking. That's probably because they play in the Big East. They play a lot like teams like St. John's and Georgetown, that like that. But it's all good. But man, them in Houston are looking like men playing other kids, like little boys. So,
all right, Robert, what about you, sir? What has caught your eye this week?
You left out DePaul, Will. You left out.
Yeah.
I forgot.
but yeah, I mean, UConn is not number 1 in the net because of those guys. And Houston is because in the Big 12, the bottom of the barrel is like Oklahoma State and West Virginia, and I think you could probably argue those guys are better than DePaul and Georgetown. So
way better.
But UConn dropped a game to Creighton. To me, that doesn't mean a whole lot. I mean, they're still going to be there, I think. Houston is starting to separate themselves a little bit in the Big 12. Yeah, we're taping on Sunday. They went to Baylor yesterday and won in overtime. Road wins in the Big 12, hard to come by. So Houston's starting to separate themselves a little bit. Arizona and Tennessee, I think, are the other 1 seeds right now, but I'm a little shaky on those 2 guys. But Houston and UConn, I think those 2 guys are starting to separate a little bit.
All right. So, fellas, the story of the week was going to be one thing, and then we had what happened against Duke and Wake Forest. So, court storming, field storming. Let me first say, safety and security are our number one priority. And as a former athletic administrator who had to do game management, game security, as a former basketball coach of a team that every game, Will Cotton's senior year that we lost was a court storming. So, as somebody who's been involved in that with very little security, it irritated me at what Wake Forest did in terms of the horrible job. The coach even called timeout, fellas, to say, all right, we're about to have something happen. So I'm irritated. I'm going to let you guys take this over one at a time. But before we do, the SEC will fine you $100,000 the first time, $250,000 the second time, and $500,000 the third time you storm a court. The Big 12, $25,000 went to UCF for storming it. The Big East, $5,000. The Big 10 follows a 3 strikes you're out rule, and the ACC has nothing. So, George, what are your thoughts on the court storming situation with Duke and Wake, and court storming overall?
I mean, I don't know how I don't know how you police this, and I don't know where they come down on. I know the fine, you can continue to do the fines, but if you look, you let Ole Miss beat Alabama, and they'll and on football, and they'll rush the field. So it's a problem, and I don't have a good way to police this. That's the big thing. Unless you move the kids off the court, but even then, you can see like in football, they jump over the guardrails and they're down on the field. So to me, it's not just the issue of just court storming in basketball. It's in every sport. But we mostly only see it in football and in basketball. I think it is definitely a problem that needs to be addressed, and they need to look more security wise, because the fact that Filipowski gets hurt is massive. I mean, if that hurts him going in, if that hurts him going to head in the tournament, it's really going to be a problem. So, that's something they're going to have to talk about to figure out what they're going to do with.
All right, Will, again, as I mentioned to the crowd and our audience, you've been a part of these things. What are your thoughts right now?
I'm very biased because, one, I was punched in the face in a court storming. A punch, and I didn't even know who did it, and we won. And that's the crazy thing. Like, we won. I'm like, yeah, wow. And I'm like, what happened? I'm very biased because, one, I was punched in the face in a court storming. A punch, and I didn't even know who did it, and we won. And that's the crazy thing. Like, we won. I'm like, yeah, wow. And I'm like, what happened? The biggest thing is you want to keep people safe. That is the biggest thing. Liabilities, because those, you might pay the $500,000, you might pay this, but if somebody gets hurt, towards ACL, gets stamped on, dies, something like that, you're gonna come out pocket millions of dollars. So I've always been a proponent who says all those things that happen inside stadiums, whether it's fighting, whether it's court storming, whether all that stuff, make it a felony. Make it a felony. People will stop doing it, whether it gets convicted or not, whatever. But you're going to go through such a process, money, time. You're not even going to do it. Just make it a felony. And that person even then takes another level. You can't even do certain things. You could go to prison now. So if you're really serious about safety, up the penalties, and just tell people straight up, like, if you're a streaker, if you get on those fields, you're getting a felony. Period. You're going to jail. And I think that's the best way you have to do it.
Okay, Robert, you're our administrator. What are you thinking about, sir?
Well, yes, safety is the biggest issue. Liability is a big issue. I hope that Filipowski is not hurt too badly, because you're right. If you're right, George, if that impacts their season going forward, that's really that would be a bad thing. I mean, I've been on the other side of this where, we were not prepared. I was a first year AD. We were not prepared. Our kids rushed the court, and we had to suspend 4 of our kids because they decided to give a kid from the other team the business. And fortunately, we had video of everything. And, it was a difficult conversation with those kids and those parents, but not too difficult, because all you got to do is show them the video and go, right? So I don't really know how they address this. Obviously they need more security. Obviously they need to do a better job of talking to their kids about what their expectations are and what the consequences are. They have video. It's not like you can't say, if you rush the court, you ain't going to be able to come back. And we've got you on video. We know you were here, because how do they get in? They get in with their student IDs. You scan their IDs in. It's not that hard. But when you have hundreds of them doing that, that I think it's something that they can address. It's something that they have chosen not to address to this point. At some point, the combination of finding them, the liability, the safety, and somebody really getting hurt, like Filipowski getting hurt now, I think the combination of those 4 things will change that dynamic, and I think we'll see it less and less.
All right. So, Robert, I'm going to, go ahead, George.
Key, and I will say, because my time being AD, I can remember that first we were deep in the playoffs one year in basketball. And I remember it allowed me, I went to the student section. We're actually up at Gaithersburg. And in the student section, I told my kids, nobody leaves the stands. And they didn't. Okay. So they kind of listened to that. But when we were on our state championship run, well, I think we were at the regional final, there were so many kids. I don't care who I talked to. I mean, and so there was and that's why I said, I don't know which way you go, because there were so many. And by in the blink of an eye, there was 150 kids on the floor, and there was nothing anybody could do about it. So more security, I don't even know if that is. Maybe you look at barriers. I don't know what you do. Maybe if we turn this into almost like a hockey rink where you put the see-through plexiglass up, because they're going to come and they're going to try to come. And it's what are you going to do to stop them? Because it ain't just manpower. I don't care if I get 75 or 100 security officers down there and just start catching all. They're not going to get them all. That's not going to happen. So I don't know which way they go with that.
All right. Totally understand. And that's why I'm going to go to Robert with this. We can't even shake hands anymore. The Southland Conference suspended 8 players last week for their involvement in a massive college basketball brawl between Texas A&M Commerce and Incarnate Word. So the brawl started during the handshake line. We can't shake hands anymore. And it went everywhere. So, Robert, between the court storming and the handshake line, what do you think we do in these situations?
So when I saw the brawl, my first question was immediately, I wonder what happened during the game, right? Because usually when something like that happens, it's precipitated by something that has gone on during the game. I mean, these are 2 Texas schools, but they're not really rivals. A&M Commerce is relatively new to Division I, so there's not a lot of history, not a lot of recent history there. Their players are all probably from Texas, so they all probably know each other. Their paths have crossed along the way somewhere. So there could be some old bad blood. I really don't know. We should be able to shake hands after the game and not have stuff like this happen. We should.
Okay.
It always strikes me that who shakes hands first in these college games? The coaches, because they're standing up right there. The coaches all go through, and the kids are all behind them. And when you shake hands in high school, typically the kids go shake hands first and the coaches stay behind them. So the coaches can watch and kind of police. And so I don't know. This kind of stuff should not happen. The Southland Conference jumped in right away and addressed it. I don't think either school is particularly happy about what happened. They're probably not happy about the suspensions either. Also, I think that this comes a little bit just from this is where we are in the world.
Mhm.
It never would have occurred to me or anybody I ever played with to punch somebody in the handshake line. And yes, I'm old and that was a long time ago and get off my lawn, but that never would have occurred to anybody. That didn't happen. And the world is a different place. Should we be shaking hands after games? I don't know. Maybe not.
So George, again, you are an athletic director, one of the most prominent schools in the state of Maryland. You have seen it on both sides. What are you thinking about? We've got handshake lines, we've got storming courts. Share your thoughts.
This was the one, and it. You want to talk about something that stayed in my thought process, or I was always worried about. This was like it, and it might be, and it probably was, because where Robert just said with the this, nobody ever thought about it. You didn't when we played. You didn't. But
good game.
Yeah. Even if you had something to say to them, you didn't even do it. But on purpose, as an athletic director, on purpose, I would take a police officer with me, and we would stand at the middle of the handshake line as they went past. Whether it was basketball or football, did that on a regular nightly basis. Did that because I didn't want anything to happen. Just like I told the coaches and would instruct the players for football, put your helmet back on. When you go through this handshake line, I don't want anybody, I'm trying to avoid anything, because if it does happen, we're going to have something there. So I made the presence of authority or security felt at that point in time. So those were one of my biggest fears. So I try to do everything against it, because, and as you could see, as soon as it happens in a handshake line, everybody's close enough that it becomes an all-out brawl. So it's not like you can get it or separate that little situation. It is and then they come that, because it's such a confined space. The question is, do we still need to shake hands? I think we do, because if we're out here, we're promoting sportsmanship. But then we got to come back to that. How are we going to do it in a safe method? And how can we do it to be controlled?
So shaking hands after the game is good sportsmanship, but kids chirping at each other the whole game, right? I mean, that's so I just wanted to add one more thing, because y'all know I'm an official also. And I saw on social media some people, well, where are the officials in all this? Well, at the end of the game,
you leave.
They're gone. Yep. Because as soon as that game ends, I'm out.
Right.
I'm out, because the game is over, and by rule, the game ends officially when we leave the floor, right? When we're out of, that's when our jurisdiction ends. And if we stay on the floor when something like that happens, we no longer have plausible deniability. Those guys have no idea what happened because they left. And if they stayed, then they've got to try to explain all of that. And they have to go back and look at video and decide ejections and all that. And, you're not going to shoot any because the game's over. You're not doing anything. But you can still disqualify players and eject players from a game that is over if you haven't left the floor. You can still do that.
So I wanted to close with Will. because, again, Will played for me. He was our team captain, and he's been a part of a lot of situations. And one situation in particular, we had to get escorted off the floor, and there was no conflict between the opposing teams. So, Will, you've heard about the court storming. You've seen what happened with the handshake line. From a player perspective, what are your thoughts on this?
We're from an era where, that's respect. There wasn't a lot of fighting on the court. There wasn't a lot of in the game was the game. Now, if we fought after it, maybe somebody said something about somebody mama or said somebody girlfriend or somebody whatever. But there was not a lot of it was respect at the end of the day. And I think a lot of kids don't have that. Number one, leave it inside the lines. There's no reason to all right, we're talking, but you lost, I won, or whatever, and we'll keep moving. Let's look back at Robert with Georgia. They're saying, or do we need that? I mean, we're at an information. We have an information age now, and we're moving forward to a different age of artificial intelligence and different things. Do we need this? Do we have to change this? We change rules all the times. Tradition, sometimes I get it. That's what we're tied to, especially as Americans. We're big on traditions. We always this is what we do. We've never changed. But as things move forward, I mean, I don't think they have to do anything right now. Court storming, you could definitely do something a little quicker than the handshake line. But just be mindful of it. See what's going on. I'll be honest with you, it doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't, like you said, like Robert said, ref's gone. I've already turned off the TV. What you mean? I don't want to. Nobody cares about that. And it's cost effective to just stop doing it. We won, okay? Go to your locker rooms. That's it. Those arenas that are unfortunate have those the shared ones where they're all going to the same thing. It's so weird to me, especially like the NFL. They're Kelsey next to Lions. I'm like, why are y'all going to the same joint? But yeah, it's just we should start looking at rules, safety, how to make things a little better. And sometimes it'll come. Sometimes we lose our traditions, but that's the evolution of world and the evolution of society itself. So,
and for me to answer Robert's questions, at Hood College, Coach Dickman went first. Coach Hill was in the middle, and I was always in the back because, as you said, Robert, if there's ever a meeting, I've seen this, I've seen that. So we staggered it on purpose because whether we won, lost, or whatever, it's don't do anything to get us in the paper. Don't do anything as when I was in AD, George, you're correct. Keep that helmet on because you're all got the same helmet on. But as soon as you take it off, you now have a projectile. And now there's another meeting that I have no interest in going in. So with that, fans, when we get back, we're going to talk about the women's game and the things going on with that. We'll be right back on the Odd Coaches podcast.
Why should student athletes use the CKA SAVE Project academic and athletic consulting services? Over the past 15 to 20 years, colleges, universities, professional sports teams, business organizations, and others have increased their use of consulting services to improve their decision-making processes and results. Over the same time, the athletic and academic landscape has changed for high school and college student athletes as the NCAA has raised initial academic eligibility requirements for student athletes while decreasing the number of transfer restrictions. Former college student athletes have noted that they were academic and athletically unprepared for the rigors of college. Let the CKA SAVE Project's close to 30 years of academic and athletic experience help guide student athletes to increase success as we work to help student athletes achieve the goal of obtaining a college degree. For more information, contact Dr. Keith Adams by email at cka@ckasaveproject.org.
Welcome back to the Odd Coaches podcast in segment 2. We've got a new person in the women's net rankings in the top 10. So let's go with it. Number 1, South Carolina. Again, South Carolina, thank you for your hospitality. I was just there. UConn's 2, Stanford's 3, Texas is 4, UCLA is 5, Iowa is 6, Ohio State 7, Utah's 8, LSU is 9, and making their top 10 net debut, the USC Lady Trojans. Long winning streaks in the women's game. A lot of teams on multiple 10, 11, 12, 15 game winning streaks. South Carolina, Florida Gulf Coast, Ohio State, Middle Tennessee, Princeton, Fairfield, Chattanooga, Jackson State, San Diego State, South Dakota State, and Gonzaga. Will Cotton, it is your time, sir. What has caught your eye this week, my friend?
Man. Y'all know every week I bang the same drum, and it's getting louder and louder every week, baby. Juju Watkins. And the funny thing is, she had a bad game. And Robert called me out, and she was like, "Oh yeah, she had a bad game. She had 18-11. That is a bad game for Juju Watkins. 18 and 11.
18 and 11 went 6 for 32 from the floor.
Wow, 32.
You're told to shoot, and if it's not working, you got to do something else. And she was doing other things. She is a complete package, man. I think she has a great personality. I follow her on Instagram. She gets a lot of love from NBA players, LeBron and Russell Westbrook and all these guys. She can ball, man. I think she's exciting to watch. I think she has a lot of passion. I think she has a good aura of terms, and obviously hey, her bun is up. That joint don't go down. That joint be stuck right up in this joint like this. I'll try to tell you. So I just like her vibe, man. And she's getting a lot of like Lisa Leslie kind of stuff, and she's getting a lot of but it's good, man. And she's humble. From what I can see, she's taken to it. She gives it back to the community. She's, so I love the story, man. So keep watching. She may not win the championship, but she'll excite you. That's all I got to tell you that.
George, what's caught your eye in the women's game this week?
Chalk. that's what it is. Juju returned, but it's still chalk. But my big thing, and the crazy thing is, how much, and I don't know how they fix this, the female college game has so much more momentum than the WNBA. I mean, we speak about it, whatever, but if you go and look at the females game now, the gyms are packed, people are going to see them, but it don't translate. So I'm trying to, that was the thing, the light that shined on me, because I saw South Carolina play. I watched LSU play. I watched the US. I watched part of USC. Even watched some little bit of ACC. And of course, because we're here in Maryland, I saw Maryland, which is usually good, but I don't know what Tara did this year. But the gyms are packed. People are going. And then you go look at the WNBA games, and it's not as well. But anyway, that's for a whole nother segment.
All right, Robert, what's caught your eye?
In fairness to Juju and me calling her out for a bad game, I also gave her props I also sent you that one, gave her props.
He did.
Against Colorado, she scored
42.
42
42
on 19 field goals. So, she's a baller.
Yep.
She is a baller, and she is fun to watch. I got to watch her, I think it was last week, and she's a lot of fun to watch. Caught my eye this week. I don't know if you saw, Iowa went to Indiana, and the line was, circled around Assembly Hall twice kind of thing, and they got inside, and Indiana just absolutely took Iowa.
Yep. Dropped them.
I'm curious about Iowa because I've watched them play quite a bit, because you got to watch Caitlin Clark, but they're not great defensively.
That was very polite.
And they depend on being able to score the basketball, on hitting shots. And they're good. They have several good shooters on that team. They can score. But if they have an off night, they're going to struggle, because they're not going to get stops defensively.
Trouble.
They are not going to dominate anybody on the boards. They're small. So it's going to be interesting to see as they get into the turn. I mean, nobody's going to beat them the first weekend, but as they get into the tournament, as they get deep into the tournament, matchups are going to matter for them a lot. And if they get a bad matchup early, somebody big and strong and physical, and I don't know who that would be.
Utah.
Yeah. I mean, Utah's a terrible matchup for them.
I was thinking of, when I saw Iowa this week lose to Indiana, and especially when big girl grabbed Caitlin Clark's shot and just stared it down, I was like, "Please, you run into Utah in the tournament, it's going to be a problem because their whole process, their whole thought process, we're going to outscore everybody." So,
well, and it may be that they play Utah and they go 50 20 for 32 from three, and that. I mean, that, but yeah, matchups are going to be an issue for them as they get deep into the tournament, I think.
All right. So story of the week to piggyback on Robert. Caitlin Clark is must-see TV, and the Big Ten women's basketball tournament has sold out in advance for the first time in the history of the event. The Big Ten announced last week that it expects a 5-day attendance total of more than 109,000 at the Target Center, and the previous record was 48,000. Tickets are only available on the secondary market. The proximity to Iowa, which is less than 5-hour drive. This is one, as George said, how is this going to translate over? So, George, I'm going to start with you. Caitlin Clark's box office, they sold out the Big Ten women's tournament. So whether Iowa makes it to the finals or not, those tickets have already been sold. Man, what do you think about Caitlin Clark being box office? And what would you suggest in terms of catapulting that to the WNBA?
See, and that's where it becomes hard because you got, and it's not just Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark, I'll tell you one thing that the WNBA has done, and I think it's happened unintentionally, and it's been organic. One superstar has then you get to see that one superstar, but while you're watching, you see all these other girls, and then they become superstars. I mean, it went from, like last year, we got sucked in with Caitlin Clark and the two Cavaliers sisters and all of this, and then LSU became the darlings as we went through, and my girl became just hot. She's on Vogue runways and stuff. So it's been an organic kind of thing. So, and it continues to it. I just mentioned, Robert was talking, I mentioned Utah. The big girl from Utah is huge. Wherever she goes, there's going to be a following. So you have a cavalcade of stars coming in. It's like Georgia Championship Wrestling back in the day. You had them all. So, and this continues, but what happens is, I don't know how they translate that to the WNBA because the girls go to WNBA and we'll hear about them on TV and okay, Sports Center covers, but that fire and that I must see TV situation is not there anymore. So I don't know how they get that fire and keep that momentum going because I can tell you right now, if Iowa has to play South Carolina again this year, that's gonna be a sold out game. Everybody will watch that. If South Carolina and LSU meet up, that's gonna be sold out. Everybody's gonna watch that. I mean, a lot of people will turn off the men's game to go watch one of those games. So it's gonna be, they really have, WNBA really needs to take a look at it and say, how do I keep this product we have hot coming from college here? Because right now the big thing is, and we mentioned it before, what is the incentive for Caitlin Clark or any of the other girls to leave college right now and go to WNBA? Because with that NIL money, they're making big money down where they are in school, and they're going and there's no
pay cut.
They're going to take a deep pay cut. They're going to take a pay cut. My girl down at LSU going to lose a whole lot of money going to the WNBA. So that's my big thing.
Robert, box office, go ahead.
Well, I mean, Caitlin Clark, she has a COVID year still.
Yep.
She has a COVID year. She could score 5,000 points. And I think I mentioned this next week. She's like 6th or 5th on the all-time NCAA assists list. She could set that record too.
And an all-state commercial.
And an all-state State Farm or whatever. I mean, but yeah, there is no incentive to go to the WNBA for these girls. And it's hard. I mean, Paige Buchers, she's staying. Who can blame her?
Yep.
You know, it's there just isn't incentive for them to go to the WNBA, and that's something they're going to have to figure out. But you know what? Let them stay. Let them stay.
Let them stay. Cotman, you close us out. What are you thinking about it? Caitlin Clark is box office. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, she can ball. She can ball. And I think the best thing is happening with especially social media. I mean, to be honest with you, I wouldn't really know about Juju Watkins if it wasn't for social media. I was, somebody put me on with a clip from her in high school when I think she went to Sierra Canyon with Bronny. And I got to take a look at that. And I was like, man, she is nice. So they are doing very well on this platform. And they gainer a lot of celebs who come back and say they're doing very well too. I think just like George and Robert and even Coach said, I think what you need, man, you have to use that kind of like that wrestling mentality. You need characters. You need, villains. You need heels. You need heroes. You need, that draws us in. Nobody really likes NBA basketball no more. Everybody just likes LeBron, or I like Tatum, or I just like this person, or I like that person. I rock with so-and-so. I go wherever he go. I'm a big fan of Harden. They need personalities. And like George says, they need to do a better way of transitioning the college game image to a professional image that keeps people going and still like, okay, like this is good. I like that. I'm very interested. Oh, you're a rival. Yeah, I like that. Y'all beef in college. Now y'all beef. I like it. I like that. Yeah, so they have to use whatever, and everybody use it. I don't know why the WNBA uses it. Everybody uses the WWF model. They do it. Everyone, the NBA does it. The NFL does it. MLB does it. Boxing. Been done it. Like, why don't you do that? I think that would be, and I think it would happen. It's naturally. I think the personalities would come out. You would get your natural villains. You would get your natural heroes and heels and things like that. And I think that'd be good for the sport. That's good for the sport. Money, the kids, and again, this is better for the women's game, low key for the men's game, because they can stay and make money in college, and they can grow and they can get bigger, and they can, when they go to the professional, then they can kind of be more effective in terms of a professional. So there's a lot of things going for them, man. And I think they have lightning in a bottle, and they need to somehow hold on to it and keep that momentum running. But yeah, it's amazing. I mean, just in the last like 5 years. I mean, myself, I didn't really care that much about women's college basketball. And now I'm like, oh, man, look who's playing. Oh, is Peely playing? Oh, man, is Juju Watkins playing? Oh, man, what's the score last night? So it's and again, I'm a basketball guy. So it's going to trickle down into the people, the casual fans and but it's great where they're at right now. Capture it. And like George said, they need to figure out that transition. But, man, they have the energy going. The momentum crazy.
I'll put forth an idea, because this is actually, and I see it coming, and y'all, I want y'all to to comment on it, because it's almost like the girls are so popular and big right now, and social media has a lot to do with in college basketball and the way girls college basketball is gone, that it's starting to get there where it's starting to get ready to eclipse men's college basketball in popularity, because we don't pay attention to men's college. Look, men's college basketball used to be my favorite thing, but now the guys are only there for maybe a quick second, or if they even go, and then they go right to the league. So then I'm going to be paying more attention to see how they shape out, to where now you get to know these girls. We've watched Caitlin Clark for 2 or 3 years now. You've watched my girl down at LSU for a couple of years. Juju Watkins now comes in as a freshman, so they're picking it up. So it's almost
So
like
what you're
that's what,
saying, George, is like when Duke was big in the 90s,
right.
you knew Hurley, Leitner,
Correct.
Hill,
Right.
and now because
Right.
everybody's in and out, transferring back and forth, where
Yes.
LSU
Yes.
can build name recognition. South
Yep.
Carolina, you can follow because they have to
Yep.
stay three.
Yep.
Okay, I can
Yep.
understand that.
Yep.
All right, so fans, when we get back on the Odd Coaches podcast, stay out of court. NCAA won't follow our advice and it's going to bite them in the booty. We'll be right back on the OCP.
The reviews are in for Dr. Keith Adams' book, Finding the Balance, My Personal Journey to Academic and Athletic Success. College professor and student athlete academic expert Dr. Lisa Rubin said, "There is nothing out there like this book, so I do hope people will pay attention and give it a read." Former George Mason standout Fowler Campbell said, "Consider this book an opportunity to work directly with Dr. Adams just like I did. I assure you that there will be something you can take away that will be useful to you throughout your personal journey." Ryan Waite, a recent college graduate who is a software engineer, said, "I like how the book is based on research, which makes it good for general students as well as student athletes." The book serves as both a memoir to Dr. Adams' 30-year academic and athletic career, as well as an instructional guide to assist student athletes, parents, coaches, teachers, and administrators navigate through the challenges of finding a better balance between academic and athletic success. The book includes over 15 personal stories and anecdotes from Dr. Adams, along with numerous former players and colleagues from a variety of sports and endeavors. You can order your copy at www.ckasaveproject.org. From the main page, simply click CKA Save Project Services and order the Find the Balance book. For more information, contact Dr. Keith Adams by email at cka@ckasaveproject.org.
Welcome back to the Odd Coaches podcast in segment 3. To quote my way, and now the end is near. Possibly. A federal judge in Tennessee granted a preliminary injunction last week that prohibits the NCAA from punishing any athletes or boosters for negotiating name, image, and likeness deals during their recruiting process or while they're in the transfer portal. The injunction is not a final ruling in the case, but the judge's decision will likely have an immediate and dramatic impact on how NIL deals are used in the recruiting process. Because quite frankly, according to U.S. District Judge Clifton Corker, the NCAA's prohibition of this violates federal antitrust laws. So what does this actually mean? NCAA rules prohibit student athletes from signing NIL contracts that are designed for inducement to get them to come, i.e. pay for play. For example, the NCAA recently announced sanctions against Florida State football because a member of its coaching staff connected with a prospect with a booster. And now the Friday ruling from last week, it was determined that the attorney generals have a reasonable chance of winning the case against the NCAA. Charlie Baker, bless his heart, the NCAA president, said that the restrictions on recruiting and inducements was written because the association wants athletes to choose their futures schools based on educational opportunities rather than to play money. Stop this, we're educated. So additional information before I pass it on to the panel. The NCAA has struggled to enforce their rules despite widespread acknowledgement that these things happen. So with that being said, I'm going to go to our voice of reason before I go to my voice of cynicism. Robert, you are our administrator. You have seen this from the beginning. We have covered this from day one. My doctoral research, we're sitting at Grand Canyon University together saying, they can't be this stupid, can they? Robert, you have the floor, sir.
Yes, yes, they can. Yes, they can be. And I mean, I don't know where they go now. I have no idea where they go because it is pay for play. I mean, that's what they're saying. That is what they're saying. So you basically have a choice, and I've seen that, and at this point, I'm not even sure this fixes it. You sign kids to contracts. and you agree to pay them X amount of dollars and you make them employees, and then you might be able to legislate some of this stuff. But the way it is right now, it is truly the wild, wild west out there, man. And whoever's got the most coin is who's going to have the most success. And we all know, you got Alabama out there for football. Texas and Texas A&M have more money than God. I mean, it is going to be a free for all. Let me tell you.
All right. So I went from my voice of reason to, all right, George, talk to me, man. What is this? Stay out of court, man. Stay out of court.
Tennessee. Come on, man. How long have I been saying that this was coming? NCAA is getting ready to be dissolved. Why do we have why did they even think they were going to police a team in the SEC once the floodgate had already opened? What made them think they were going to get past this? And the Tennessee, and it was crazy because the state of Tennessee took the NCAA to court. Not just
you can stay over there. We got you.
This is not just the school. The state of Tennessee took them to court. Yeah, this is going to be a situation. You might as well take the Big Ten, the SEC, and a number of teams out of what used to be the ACC, what used to be the Big 12, and, well, I can't even say the Pac-10 anymore because they don't exist. But those schools are going to get together and create a conglomerate, and they are going to form their own league. And you have now seen the beginnings of minor league for football. It's the minor league or G League for football, because it's basically what it's going to be. And we will sit here and be in awe of it and watch every freaking minute of it. They will get whatever TV sponsors they want, because there was no way the NCAA could do it and could go ahead and police this. I mean, they've been getting over for free off all this football money, and now it's going back to the schools and the players where it should be. So chaos is abound. Invasion has happened. It's over and done with now.
All right, Cotton Man, from the player perspective, what do you got?
They're done. NCAA is done. Yeah. They're done. The day of traditional things are over. Once you open the book and people see the money, once they see the money, they ain't coming back. And the NCAA has nothing to blame but themselves for this. Nothing. Literally, for decades, we said, we just want a little bit. We just want some fairness. We want some meals. Can I get some extra meals on the joint? And they're like, fine, here's the credit card. Do whatever you want.
Can I get some cream cheese on my bagel?
Yeah, and it unfortunately it mirrors. And I was telling people on Twitter, I said it mirrors like our government, archaic ideas who are taking us down because nobody wants to change and look at how things are now with our country, even the sports. The different is changing. There's no longer just 5 teams that make all the money for everybody. Everybody makes money for everybody now. You have such deep pockets of fandom, and you can be a fan of anywhere. And that was a big thing that NCAA didn't ready for, especially with the internet, is even though I moved to Texas, I might still be Ohio State man. I'm going to still send somebody to Ohio State. I don't got to watch Texas. I don't got to watch, Texas Tech or da. And they didn't think about that. And they're like, oh man, it's unfortunate, man, because we remember from the era when NCAA meant something, even though they were not perfect, don't get me wrong, but they actually had an institution that we could actually lean on and say, okay, you guys you're something. But now it's like, it's ridiculous, and then they're trying to go back to the old ways. It's not even like they're trying to move forward with policy and say, well, let's try something new. They're like, no, let's go back to the old ways and let's try. Can we do that again? And can we go back and do that? And that's not how time and society works. And
all right.
Yeah.
So Robert, I'm going to sell you. I'm going to my admin first here.
Oh, here we
So
go.
for Robert, the NCAA's current model works for every other sport except one. Everything else is fine. No one can argue that field hockey is not having an issue. Women's tennis, no issue. Gymnastics is making money, doing their thing. Lacrosse, we have our little championships. It's on Memorial Day on ESPN. No one cares. The only one it's not working for is football. Is it possible, sir, that we can separate football, have football do its own thing, but keep NCAA division whatever, and let us all live peacefully and harmony? Robert, did I sell you?
No. You know, that might have worked that might have worked as recently as a year ago. But I think now with the ruling that has come down.
Which one?
Well, I mean,
a lot of rulings are going.
Let me restart. With the rulings, let's make that plural, that have come down. I don't know where we go, because you have, not only do you have football, not only do you have men's college basketball, now you have women's college basketball. Women's softball is huge. So is the College World Series. The NCAA volleyball tournament is getting unprecedented,
wasn't that Nebraska in the stadium this past season?
Yeah, and I just it's the money has changed everything. The NCAA did not respond when they had the opportunity, and I have no idea what it looks like going forward, but it ain't going to be the NCAA, I don't think.
All right, George, I didn't sell you.
You knew that.
First. And I know I didn't sell Will. So as we wrap up, any final thoughts, starting with Will? How do you think this is going to end, sir? How's this going to end, Will? Yes, you were.
Yeah.
Man, it's gonna end. Somebody's gonna step in with big money and just be the new NCAA. But they're not gonna call themselves NCAA. They're gonna change the name, and they're gonna say we're gonna do this. And it's gonna be like Live. It's gonna be like Live. You're gonna have some people who live in the NCAA. You're gonna have some people in the college Live or whatever it is. I don't know how it's gonna happen. To be honest with you, there's so much money going around that it's hard to understand or believe that only one institution is going to run everything. And somebody's going to have to come through with at least an idea, because to be honest, they just keep doing what they're doing. Why not just keep doing what they're doing? Why change anything? Just keep doing, make money. NCAA, stop worrying about people NIL. Man, look, make your money. Just make sure,
Okay.
Yeah. Run the championships. Just run the championships.
Yeah.
We'll cut you a check.
Yeah. And Robert said, he was like, man, look, and then, you don't have to do anything. You just have to chill and just collect the money. And like, I don't know what you're doing. Like, why are you fighting against it? You just say, okay, well, everybody, and like Robert said, make them employees. Make them employees, which put them under an acceptable use policy, which they can say, we can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, we can take your scholarship outside of these parameters, because you're representing not only the state that we fight for you. So yeah, I think you treat them like employees. And just NCAA, just be the old man who just collects money on the back end. You don't got to even talk. We ain't got to know what you look like. I should know who Charlie Baker looks like. I should know who that family is.
George, any final thoughts this week before Will takes us down the rabbit hole?
Yeah, but the SEC president got together with a couple other ones, and I think this was a couple weeks ago, and they started talking, because I'm going to tell you right now, revenue sharing is going to become an issue. And that's where the fight will be. And when and Robert started mentioning it, SEC gymnastics was on TV, I think, a couple weeks ago, and it was freaking huge. And so when all the sports started making money, see, this is what happens when you let the internet in and the NCAA does nothing about it. Because then everybody can see all these different sports, which they like, which they were like, oh, these are niche sports and nobody's going to pay for them. People wanted to see them. So now they all make money. And I think that the big thing is going to be when we get the TV deals and stuff like that, like I said, that kind of revenue sharing is going to be, there's going to be a fight over it. And that's just like to keep the NBA or NFL kind of palpable, where we can have all teams be somewhat decent. It's going to be a fight right there because, Texas A&M, if we come down to it, probably have more money than any other school. If we talking about who's going to spend, it'll get ugly. So to even things out, that revenue sharing will come. But I guarantee you what, it won't be massa off that's called the NCAA. That plantation is done, y'all. That's done.
Yeah,
so
Robert, you have the last word.
So
took us down that rabbit hole.
It'll be another bite.
Hey, the Texas X's and the 12th man at A&M, they are not playing, man.
No,
they are not playing.
Yep.
I mean, and we talked about this during college football season. They bought out Jimbo Fisher's $95 million like that.
Yeah, crazy. And just said bye-bye. Here, take this money and go bye-bye. We're going to go get us a new
just like, go away. And I think I think they are still paying Kevin Sumlin. I mean, it's they're like, nah, we're good. We're going to pay it off. So
that's all the cost? Okay, all right. No problem.
Exactly.
That's actually what happened, and that's the bad part.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the bad part.
Yeah.
That's what happened. All right. So, fans, on behalf of our cavalcade of stars, I'm Dr. Keith Adams saying thank you for listening and or watching the Odd Coaches podcast. And we will see you on the sidelines. Till next time, take care.
The Odd Coaches podcast is sponsored by the CKA Save Project. The CKA Save Project is an industry leader in providing student-athlete academic and athletic support. From assessing student-athletes' academic and athletic skills, to measuring and monitoring student-athlete academic progress, to improving student-athlete time management and organizational skills, the CKA Save Project provides wraparound services for student-athletes from middle school through college. For more information, visit us on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org or schedule a free consultation with Dr. Keith Adams by emailing cka@ckasaveproject.org. We hope you enjoyed today's show. The Odd Coaches podcast drops new episodes every Tuesday through Friday on most weeks. Make sure you subscribe to the Odd Coaches podcast on Apple Music, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube. Follow the Odd Coaches podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Odd Coaches. Follow Dr. Adams on Twitter and Instagram at CKA Save Project. In addition, follow Coach Mike Francis on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Franchise, spelled Coach Franchize. For more information about the CKA Save Project, please visit them on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org. See you next time on the Odd Coaches Podcast.